After publication of the article, the Times learned from his doctor that Muhammad also had pre-existing health conditions or health problems. So this is all that they said as a retraction for the stuff that they claimed originally, and the media outlets chose to ignore the other images that the photographer took.
This is absolutely disgusting and infuriating to me. These pre-existing health problems affected brain and muscle development. Like, whoever wrote that, like, somebody needs to be fired. Editor needs to be fired. They need to never work for anybody ever again.
Fact of the matter is, unfortunately, the Palestinians are still being ruled by Hamas. And Hamas is a death cult. And this is not propaganda. Hamas steals the food. They use it for their purposes, and they do not care if the civilians die. In fact, it helps their cause.
Okay, obviously the whole Israel-Palestine debate is huge right now. It's very controversial online. And a lot of people are very, very worried about Gazans dying of starvation. That's the title of this New York Times article here. And I am not going to downplay those in Gaza who are suffering right now and who have a lack of food, because I care about people of all types, no matter which country they live in or where they're from or what their nationality is. But sadly, the Gaza story is mixed with lies. And there's actually lies that are being used as propaganda tools to paint a picture that is untrue. So I'm not saying that people are not suffering in Gaza. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying we should not care about them or we shouldn't do something about it. But I just want to go through this and show y'all. So this is an image that's been used. This is the article from the New York Times. This is an image that has been used. And this one obviously has motion with it. But this is the image itself that they've been using. And it's been all over the internet to show this child who, is obviously during the time this image was in very poor health, and very malnourished. But what they've said is this image and what's happening here is a direct result of the starvation crisis in Gaza, right? And here's the truth of it when you actually start to dig into it. So if you actually look at the data shows that also Hamas has been using their own people as human shields. That's another thing to note. But then also the data shows that Israel has delivered vast amounts of food and supplies to the Palestinians in Gaza, and Hamas has officially delivered absolutely nothing. And in fact, they've been stealing the food that the Palestinians are trying to get. So that's what we're dealing with here. But people have used images like this to essentially say Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. And we need to do something about it as the world, right? That's watching on. So that's what they've used this image as. But what are the facts behind this image, and where does it actually come from? So I'm going to scroll down now on this. I know this is a disturbing image, and I understand that. But I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of this article now and look at, because I think the truth matters. Editor's note, July 29th, 2025. This article has been updated to include information about Muhammad and this child, a child in Gaza suffering from severe malnutrition. After publication of the article, the Times learned from his doctor that Muhammad also had pre-existing health conditions or health problems. So this is all that they said as a retraction for the stuff that they claimed originally, and what started this entire propaganda spread online based on this image and the images of this kid. And this was their retraction, was they added this to the bottom of the article, right? Well, what actually was taking place? So this is an article called Hunger or Disease: What's the Truth Behind the Viral Image of a Starving Child from Gaza? So here's the image. So the truth is, and now this is something, they got this from a pro-Israel journalist, so I'll just say that much. His name is David Collier, and he claims that the media outlets chose to ignore the other images that the photographer took, which shows that his 3-year-old brother is actually very healthy. So if you look at it, you can see that this is him, and this is his brother right here. So it's a very different story being told. So if this was showing if this was based on the food levels available, his brother would look similar, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's not what's going on. So the truth is that he actually is suffering from cerebral palsy. He has hypoxemia, and he was born with a serious genetic disorder. And he's an 18th old and at this point, I believe he's actually passed away, but he was requiring nutritional supplements since birth.
Yeah.
So this is not a case of somebody that has, this has happened because of food shortages. This was something that was already happening. because of very serious medical conditions. And a medical report issued in Gaza in May of 2025 actually confirms all of this. And so David Collier, what he did was he shows the medical records, he shows the reports that were taking place, he shows how they twisted the story. Another aspect of this story is they're saying, well, one reason they can't get access to proper food is because the dad was killed by the Israelis. But he actually shows that the place that the dad was killed on the 28th of October, 2024, that same place, the Israelis lost 7 soldiers in that area in that same week. So who was the dad potentially killed by? They don't know, but it could have been, honestly, from Hamas fire that he was killed by. And even if it wasn't, this is not a case of Israelis killing Palestinians who are trying to get to food. This is a case of Israelis fighting a war against Hamas.
Right.
So very, very strange situation. He makes the point that the world is essentially trying to impose impossible logistical demands on Israel, but it's Hamas that is actually stopping the Palestinian people from getting the food they need, and not all the images are true. This is a propaganda war. What do y'all think?
This is absolutely disgusting and infuriating to me. These pre-existing health problems affected brain and muscle development. So I saw in their editor's note, it says, if this information had been known before publication, it would have been included in the article and the photo caption. No, you should have not included the photo because it makes a point that is irrelevant to the entire point of that article. That is disgusting. Whoever wrote that, somebody needs to be fired. Editor needs to be fired. They need to never work for anybody ever again doing these things. That to me, this is just exactly the problem. It's like when they released a bunch of pictures of kids in cages and talked about Trump putting kids in cages, and it was from when Obama was president. It's just deceitful. It's just disgusting. So
also, the image was still in it.
And they left the image there. It had nothing to do with it.
Editor's note, you can remove the image and say something like, this image was removed because
but
you put the disclaimer right there.
Integrity,
because it was inaccurate or whatever.
Because all they want to do is check the box on, well, we made it right, when actually all they want to do is still push the false narrative. They don't care about it being false. That's the problem.
And I'll say this.
Nobody's going to go down and read that.
That's the problem.
Most people will scroll through, see the pictures.
This is infuriating.
And
I'll say this.
And move on.
I'll say this for the sake of those who are listening, who want the full story. I have done a little bit of a dive into what's actually happening in the Gaza Strip, and people are hungry. They are having a hard time finding food, and some people have died trying to get to places where food is being distributed. So it is a crisis, but it is not genocide, I would say, from my perspective, because it's not Israel's fault. It actually is the fault of Hamas. Now, Israel has made decisions that have made it slightly harder in some ways, but they are not the major player when it comes to why people are hungry in the Gaza Strip, and they've actually done a lot to try to fix the situation.
It's a distribution breakdown is what it is. It's not a fault of, they're not allowing the aid to go in. It's like, well, no, they've allowed a lot of aid to go in. But the distribution breakdown is, wait, if we keep allowing this aid, who are we giving the aid to? It's like, well, the fact of the matter is, unfortunately, the Palestinians are still being ruled by Hamas, and Hamas is a death cult. And this is not propaganda. This isn't like an unbiased take on Israel versus Palestine. Hamas steals the food, they use it for their purposes, and they do not care if the civilians die. In fact, it helps their cause because it makes Israel look worse. And the same reason why they shoot missiles and they do out of hospitals and schools, the same reason they hide behind women and children is because it helps their cause in every way, because it makes Israel less likely to attack them because they're going to kill civilians if they do. And then when Israel does end up attacking them, it makes their cause easier because it makes the international community mad at Israel for killing civilians. And Hamas laughs all the way to the bank, as they say, because that they are a death cult. Their slogan is, we love death more than our enemies love life. And so unfortunately, it's when you're dealing with a group like that, you're going to have those distribution breakdowns, because unlike a legitimate country, if you have, say, any other country, France versus Germany, if there's a hunger issue going on in one of those countries while they're at war with each other, well, if it's a legitimate government, they're going to allow for the distribution of the food to the people that need it. And Hamas is like, oh, great, more free stuff for us. It's only for their only goal is for the destruction of the Jewish state, the destruction of Jewish people.
What's happening in the Gaza?
That's your only goal, then you can't govern. And so they have no true legitimate governments over their people, and that is what's causing the problems.
what's happening in the Gaza Strip is proof that Hamas is completely delegitimized as a government, completely delegitimized in every way. You're making the same point that David Collier makes here. He says instead they push a political agenda that aligns with the survival of Hamas. They want starving kids. He says this is a propaganda war. Images like this are its weapons. So it's like they literally want their people to die so that they can blame Israel. And it's just so sad. Here's one more example before we finish. From the Israel Foreign Ministry. This is what modern blood libel looks like. So if you see these images here, they've also used this image, and this was this essentially is a hijacked photo, and this has been spread by an Italian newspaper, and this young boy has cystic fibrosis, a serious genetic illness, and he's actually being treated overseas now. He's being treated for this. Yeah, he was moved and is being treated. And so it's like, this is the problem though, is that like now the damage has been done because people saw that image and they said, wow, like how could Israel allow this to happen? And the truth is, this is someone with a very serious medical illness that needed treatment more than just food. And the food shortage was not the main issue. So,
and these media outlets know exactly what they're doing, and they're doing it on purpose. Right. And I personally believe that they know beforehand. It's not like, retraction. We didn't know. They knew what they were doing because it's all it takes is just a logical look at these pictures to know that this isn't accurate. And the previous one, the woman holding the child, it's literally right there in the picture. She looks healthy. You mean she's eating the food before she gives it to her child? Because that's what it looks like if that's your case. So they know.
Well, what she said, they quote her, and essentially what she says, and I'm paraphrasing, is, "Well, I'm an adult, so I don't need food." You know, like and it's like it doesn't make any sense at all.
No, that doesn't work.
you'd be giving so much of your food to your kid if he looked like that you would be looking worse. You know, like you would be dying. Absolutely. Like there's no way on earth that you would allow your child to get to that state. While you look healthy, you know, no, there's no way.
You hit the nail on the head, Doug. I mean, the point is that this is on purpose. This is intentional. They had it with a group of photos. They cropped the other kid out. It's just insanity. This is absolutely.
And they know that most people are just going to look at the pictures, read a little bit of it, and move on with life and make assumptions and not actually go back and do the research like what you did, Troy. The predominant majority of people are not going to do that. So the damage is done. There's no taking it back. You can retract all day long. You could even publish a new article saying, hey, we messed up really bad, and it's not going to do anything because the damage is already done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It definitely leans the credibility to the. For anybody that does the independent research, it leans the credibility to the just war that is occurring. And again, I don't support absolutely everything that Israel's ever done and the way that they've done absolutely everything, but it's so difficult to not end up when you start looking into the research to be like, I think Israel's doing a pretty decent job when they are waging warfare and are trying to protect themselves, because the only way that the narrative is propped up that the other side that's attacking them is in the right and Israel is actually the occupier and the oppressor. The only way that narrative works is you have to fill it with all these inaccuracies. You have to prop it up, and you have to ignore so much of what Hamas does and all their own problems that are being caused. You have to ignore the fact that Israel and the international community since the 1930s have attempted to have a two-state solution, and Israel and the Jewish people were the ones that accepted it again and again, 5 different times accepted it, and the Palestinians rejected it 5 different times because their main goal was, no, we don't want there to be a Jewish state. Even if you gave us 90% of the land, that was the initial offer, was 90% of the land was offered to the Arabs in the area, 10% would go to the Jews, and they said, no, we don't want a Jewish state here. That was their number one goal. It's just no Jewish state. And so when you take that into account, it's just like, I don't understand people who still somehow side on the Palestinians. I understand the support for life. I pray and hope that the Palestinians get a legitimate government,
right?
Somebody who actually can lead them and not like the death cult that is Hamas. But I don't understand the comparing it as if, well, you have an apple here, which is Israel, and they're a legitimate community and government, and then you have Palestine, which is a legitimate government and community, and it's just they both just want to exist, and they're both just fighting a fair war, and it's just like it's not an apple and an apple. It's definitely an apple and an orange, and it's